Welcome to Operations and Supply Chain University. I'm Jerry Wright. This is lesson number 14, Failure Modes Effects Analysis, or FMEA. So failure modes effects analysis, it's really a means to determine ways that a product or a process or even a project might fail. It has also been dubbed potential problem analysis or opportunity analysis by Dr. Charles Kepner and Dr. Benjamin Trago in their 1981 book, The New Rational Manager. Using the FMEA or PPA process and our experience, we can estimate how a product or process might fail or not work so we can prevent occurrence or have a means to mitigate it should something go wrong. Think in this way. What could go wrong? How could we prevent it? And if it happens, what is our contingency? So FMEA is a structured approach to identify possible failure modes in a product or a process or risks in a project, estimate the risk level of failure points for occurrence and severity, and then prioritize actions needed to reduce the risk of failure. You can evaluate a design validation plan for a product or a current control plan for a project or a process for preventing failures from occurring. We can focus design and process implementation teams on proactive prevention of failure versus contingency actions only. Again, we want to look at ways that we can be successful and avoid failure. Think of it as if I fail to plan, then I'm planning to fail. So there are 6 FMEA steps. Number 1, use the design, the plan, or the schedule and identify those areas that are critical. Anticipate what specific potential problems could happen, and then assess the risk or the threat of those potential problems in the critical areas. So we want to look at probability and seriousness as high, medium, or low, and we'll expand on that in a minute. Identify likely causes and list as many specific causes as possible, and then identify or take preventive actions or potentially change the plan. Finally, identify contingent actions to minimize the impact if something does go wrong. So probability and seriousness, I said I wanted to cover this, so let's look at this in more detail. For each potential problem, we want to identify what's the probability, what's the likelihood something is going to occur. High means it's going to happen. It's very high, more than 50%. Medium means it's possible, probably less than 50%. Low means not likely to occur, probably like 10 or 15%, pretty low. Now, seriousness is different. A high seriousness would be a disaster, complete failure, a major problem. A medium would be more of a disruption or a delay, and a low would be a nuisance. It's like, well, I wish that didn't happen, but it did. No big deal. We'll work around it. So anything that is a medium high or a high when you look at probability and seriousness is a change, or it's a cause for changing the design project or schedule. So if we have a going to happen disaster, we need to rethink it. Is it impossible that we're going to have a disaster? No, it's not. It's possible. So we have to think through what we're doing. Let's be careful. So one of the key things is we want to develop preventive actions. So for each likely cause, we identify and or take preventive actions or change the plan in the initial product design or the project plan or the process. Think of it this way. If you cannot determine preventive actions for the likely causes, you'll need to develop contingencies for the unwanted effects. Here's an example. Likely causes a last-minute change delays the schedule to the product launch or whatever it may be. So our preventive actions is we don't allow any changes after such and such a date. Now on contingencies, because you're going to have some unwanted effects, that's typical. You want to develop contingencies. So in spite of our best efforts at preventing problems, some aw shucks things are going to happen. Murphy shows up. And then an example would be likely effect. A change is made after our design freeze date or our project no more changes date. So the contingency is we pay a vendor to work 24 hours a day and weekends if needed to catch up. So that would be an example of a contingency if something does go wrong. Now, in terms of next steps, following the FMEA process, the project plan or design should be reviewed to add the needed preventive actions and contingencies. Where appropriate, identify triggers for the contingencies. Say, if this happens, then we have to execute our contingency. Build these actions and triggers into the refined design or project plan using Excel or Microsoft Project, whatever makes sense. There's an FMEA template in your Ops University Lean Six Sigma Green Belt Toolkit that you can utilize. It looks like this. So it's in there and it'll walk you through the steps. Let's look at an example. So here's one that's adapted from the New Rational Manager book by Kepner and Trago back in 1981. This is for an inauguration event. I believe it was a lab in the New Mexico desert. I don't recall the name of the lab, but this is the example I've used for many years. So let's look at a couple lines of it. We won't review the whole thing. We need to get a feel for it pretty quickly. So the very first line is arrange for a keynote speaker. What could go wrong? Well, they might cancel or they're a no-show. What's the probability? It's possible. What's the seriousness? Well, it's high. We would have no keynote speaker. That'd be a disaster. So what are the likely causes? Illness or accident. Okay. What can we do to be preventative? Well, pretty much the only preventive actions we can do is call regularly, make sure they're scheduled, it's on their calendar, there's no issues. But our contingency would be, let's arrange for a backup keynote speaker. So if the general or the major can't do it, then we'll have a colonel or someone else do it. And the trigger will be a cancel or a no-show. So that's the first line. The second line, let's say set up a facility or set up our facility for a seated audience. What if there's not enough seats? Well, why would there be not enough seats? Well, too many people come. What's the preventive action? We could rent extra seats. What's our contingency? We can provide a standing area behind the seated section. Okay, what's the probability of that? Well, it's kind of low. What's the seriousness? Well, there'd be a disruption. It could be a problem. The third one down, and this is the last one I'll cover before we get to the end of this, is what if we have inclement weather? Because this is an outdoor event. What's the probability? Well, it's New Mexico. It's fairly low. But if we had a lot of rain or high winds, it could be a disaster. What can we do to prevent that? Well, nothing. You can't do anything about the weather, but we could say, oh, maybe we have awnings outside if it's raining or have an indoor area if needed, and that would be our trigger. Well, they went through all these sections. So sound equipment, notifications, temporary parking, seating, drinking water, waste disposal. They really did a great job of planning this event out. Now, the day before the event actually occurred, the inauguration event occurred, the primary keynote speaker said, I'm sick, I can't make it. They said, no problem, we've got our backup speaker ready to go. The day of the event was a sunny day. It was beautiful. The weather was great. A lot of people came. Apparently they didn't have anything else to do, so they went to this inauguration event. So they did have to use the standing area. Fortunately, there was no inclement weather. The sound equipment worked fine. The notification went great. They had a backup parking lot with school buses, people in that all went fine. They had seating was good. Everything else was fine. They had plenty of drinking water. The Boy Scouts were running around picking up trash. So again, they did a really fantastic job on this. Now, one of the things that was not in the inauguration event plan was a jet flyover. Now, I have to point out this was like a 1950s type of inauguration event, and jets traveling at a high speed or high speed or high velocity were not a common thing. So it was kind of a neat feature, but they didn't put it in the plan. Now, what happened is the Jets thought they'd do a pretty cool thing. They'd come racing in really high speed and make a big, excitement for the inauguration event. Well, the challenge is they didn't understand much about the speed of sound and sonic booms. So when the Jets came in, they were actually dragging a sonic boom with them, and it actually broke many of the windows, and everybody had to cover their ears at this inauguration event. So again, they didn't plan for it. They probably wouldn't have got it anyway, but everybody remembers that inauguration event, not for how well it went off, but because of the sonic boom and that the Jets brought in as they flew in very quickly. So again, this is just an example of one that's been adapted from the New Rational Manager book. It's a great example because it kind of shows you how you can go through this planning process. It doesn't take very long. Now, I've used this a lot for projects and design releases and things like that. Here's an example of one that I've modified slightly. There's actually several more pages on this, but this is a manufacturing project launch and release, and we went through all the specific things we had to do, and you can see the probability and seriousness there. We had a couple of possible disasters that we had to do some specific planning on, but essentially we went through this whole thing. We launched this on time. I believe believe it was under budget and had very few issues because we spent time up front planning through this. Now, this particular FMEA that we created probably took about 3 or 4 hours to conduct, but we looked at it every week. We followed up on it. We made sure we have everything covered, and it was really, really effective. Now, in your Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt Toolkit, as I indicated before, you have a failure modes effects analysis guide or a template that you can use to walk you through, very similar to the one we looked just a couple of slides back. So it's a great opportunity. Now, a couple things for you to be aware of related to failure modes effect analysis and pitfalls and watch-outs. There are a few things that you have to be careful of. One, the experience of the designer or project manager or the project team results in overconfidence saying, we will not fail. Well, again, that's just, pride. The second one is the project or design team relies on continued action. We don't have time to do failure modes effects analysis. We'll just keep each other informed and do whatever it takes if something occurs or goes wrong. That's blind perseverance. You don't want to do that either. It really doesn't take very much time to do the FMEA. And in some regulated environments like the FAA and the FDA, they expect you to do failure modes effects analysis. It's a requirement to submit products or different type of things for approval of those agencies. So it's not just a nice to have, it's an expected must. So again, you have a great way to go through this failure modes effects analysis if you've never done one before. They're pretty easy. Now, if you want more details or more experience, here's a couple other books you can look at. There's 2 of them here by D.H. Stamatis. There's the original one and then the revised and expanded version. Plus, again, I put out the new Rational Manager where they talk about opportunity analysis. And again, these are all great resources to look at and see how you can improve your failure mode and effects analysis capabilities. That's it for this lesson. Thank you.